Well, hello, retro game players. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Marcus, and welcome to my top 10 SEGA Genesis games of 1989.
そんな噂が飛び交ってるけど、それはソフトのせいじゃない。ハードに限界があったからだ。セガメガドライブ16ビット CPU 搭載。限界のバリアをぶち破って見せる、迫る、うなる。ビジュアルショック、スピードショック、サウンドショック。
時代が求めた16ビットセガメガドライブ。
Alright, welcome back, you guys. I appreciate you tuning back in for another episode. And the SEGA Genesis is one of my favorite systems of all time, so I wanted to do this launch year justice. And it was hard picking 10 games, even though there was only a handful released on the system. It was tough narrowing it down to 10. And I actually even made some last-minute changes on this list just based off of me playing, capturing footage, and remembering how good some of the games were that I thought weren't that good. And anyway, I don't know. You guys tell me what you think of this list. I did my very best on this one. It took a while. So first up, coming in at number 10, is the launch title that was bundled, Altered Beast. Now, Altered Beast is not necessarily a great game on the Genesis, but it's coming in at 10. And the reason for that is it actually was a good launch title in my mind. Obviously, Sonic was a lot better. But as far as this game's concerned, it came out in '89. It's really fun, 2 players. You can upgrade your guy into like a bulky dude, and then you actually morph into either a werebear, a dragon, a tiger, or a wolf. And it's actually pretty cool. Each level is different. There's 5 different levels. Each one has a pretty creepy boss at the end. And the music's solid. You know, it is tough, but after a while you kind of get the hang of it. And there's also a couple little secrets, or small secrets, but if you are holding B and hit start at the main menu, you'll pull up a secondary menu where you can change options, including get yourself more health. Also, when you die, I think it's you hold up and B or start and B, I can't remember, but you'll actually continue from that beginning of that stage that you died on. So there's some definite tips, you know, as far as making it through the game. But it's a classic game. I definitely thought this was creepy to play when I was a kid. The graphics, the even the end bosses were really pretty freaky. And anyway, that's what's going on. Altered Beast is number 10. Let's check out number 9. For number 9, we're going old school Sega. You know, this game was an awesome arcade style game. It was on the Master System, and the sequel was a launch title, which is really cool. It's Space Harrier 2, and I'll tell you what, this game graphically is pretty awesome. The only reason it's not higher on the list is because it is sort of a stale, old school scroller, I'd say, but it is really cool, and it's fun to play. The level design on this ranges from kind of ominous to futuristic to super hyper 80s, like the pink backgrounds, stuff like that. Each level that you go through takes a while. You definitely want to dodge all the incoming attacks and kind of line yourself up with the enemy when shooting, but you do get to a cool boss at the end of each level before proceeding to the next stage. Now, when you first start, you can actually do similarly to the other option as an Altered Beast. I think it's where you hit B and start, and it'll pull up another menu and you can adjust different things like the difficulty. But yeah, the other thing it can do is at the beginning you can stage select. You can play the last level, but it's tough. It's definitely tough, and I'd say that helps the replayability of this game because you can kind of jump around. But yeah, I mean, this game has some classic sprite scaling effects. It was definitely an improvement over the Master System when you saw this, and it's just so colorful. It really has an awesome soundtrack as well. So there you go, Space Harrier 2 And let's move on to number 8.
Number 8.
All right, number 8 is a pretty crazy game because it's a movie licensed game. Are you guessing? Are you out there thinking of it? I'm just curious, but it is Rambo 3. Now, Rambo 3, it was a good Rambo movie. I really prefer the first two. That's just me. But as far as a movie that's an action movie, it's fine. And I think it has a lot of good scenes. There's definitely a lot of classic scenes in that movie. But anyway, the game port is totally different. You might have looked at the box and been like, what is this? I don't know. But truthfully, the game is actually pretty good. It's a top-down sort of shooter. You run around similar to like, Akari Warriors, but you actually can switch between your different weapons like grenade, which is like a time bomb, and that's really useful for taking out walls, towers, tanks, transports, anything like that. You can switch to your bow and arrow, which you can shoot by just tapping it or hold it down and it charges, and it actually works a lot better. And then you have just this badass machine gun. Oh, and a knife, so you can run up and knife people if you want. But anyway, the gameplay itself is pretty frantic. You just kind of move from stage to stage. Sometimes they have you looking for different things. All in all, it's pretty awesome. And then there is like a cool kind of confrontation at the end. The helicopter here is definitely pretty cool, where you take it down with your explosive bow and arrow. But yeah, I mean, it's a good action game, and I would highly recommend this one if you're looking for a military-style overhead shooter on the Genesis. So that's Rambo 3. Let's move on to number 7.
Number 7.
All right, for number 7, I have a recent pickup. It's a game that I recently traded from Reggie. And Reggie, if you're watching, I know it hurts to see this, but it's Thunder Force 2. Now, Thunder Force 2 deserves to be kind of down on the list, unfortunately. I wish it could recommend it a little higher. I wish it was something that was a little more enjoyable, but the truth is that the first level and every other level is a top-down sort of hunting around level where you have to find 4 different bases and destroy them all to proceed. So the first level, that's what you do. You got to go around in this ship. It is pretty cool. You upgrade your weapons, and after a while you do get the hang of it, but it's just, you'll be flying along and all of a sudden a wall will be there and you're dead, and that's kind of extreme. But the idea is to look for these thin walls, and you can shoot the transformer that's creating that, and then you can go through to the next area. But each area, there's a base. Take the base down, and then you're able to proceed. And then that's when you get to level 2, which is a total classic side-scroller. That's where this game shines, in my opinion. It's worth just for that. That is very cool. And then also, you can, again, bring up another menu and switch to every other level, and that is a redeeming quality too. So I think it's, again, B and start or A and start, pulls up a menu, and you're able to actually go right to level 4, for example, or level 5, and just switch around. And so anyway, that makes it a little better, because honestly, the overhead map levels are just kind of brutal, and they're a little bit annoying, but you can get through them. It's worth it. So anyway, that is Thunder Force 2 coming in at number 7. Let's move on to number 6.
Number 6.
All right, coming in at 6 is a very awesome Capcom game. This is a game that has some very unusual controls, but after you get the hang of it, it's very, very refreshing and really fun. It's a very rewarding shooter known as Forgotten Worlds. Now, Forgotten Worlds was a game I actually played when I was a kid quite a bit, and I really enjoyed this one because A and C, you can rotate left or right, and you can go 360. And then, you go around, you shoot these enemies, you get these weird bouncing globes that kind of look, I don't know what they look like, energy masses or something, but those are currency, and then shops will pop up and you can upgrade yourself, and that's really what you have to do. You've got to be grabbing all the money in the game, saving it for the shops, upgrading your armor, your weapons, get some health. You can upgrade all kinds of stuff, so it's actually really fun. You can play, again, with 2 players at the same time. I've beat this game more than once. I really, really enjoy it. It has an awesome flow to it. I actually played it on the channel. I would recommend it to you guys. Also, a pretty cool, soundtrack. I'll tell you, they were kind of trying to do something like Contra. That's what it seems like, but it's a different style. How you can just fly around and, do the left-right movement, and it's just unusual, but cool enemy design, great bosses. Anyway, it's a classic. Let's move on to number 5.
Number 5.
All right, rounding out the middle with number 5 is a super classic arcade game. This is a really good port. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, but hey, for their first attempt on the Genesis, I'd say this is a pretty solid side-scrolling beat-em-up, and you guys know it, it's Golden Axe. Golden Axe is an awesome medieval-style fighting game. You can be a girl, a guy, or this little dwarf dude. They're all badass. You save up magic. You can unleash attacks with whatever weapon you have. You can run, grab dudes, throw them. It's an awesome beat 'em up game, and when this came out, it was one of the best games to play as 2 players. So really fun, classic soundtrack, like really good soundtrack. I think I actually covered the record on the channel, and I've done gameplay of this too. So one of my favorite games. I'd say a lot of people love this game, and that's why it comes in pretty high. So yeah, Golden Axe is amazing, and of course the sequel is really good too, but we're not going to get into that since we're in 1989, but let's move on. But before we do, we've got a word from our sponsor.
大魔界村メガドライブで登場傑作を超えた超ド級の迫力ホラーアクションゲーム大魔界村
Alright, coming in at number 4 is another awesome arcade game that was ported, and this is a very cool shoot 'em up. For some reason, I wish that Thunder Force 2 could just be up at this level, but again, those things I said really kind of hurt it. So, in its place is a really solid shoot 'em up. You guys know it as Truxton. Now, Truxton is a very easy to get into shooter. You get lots of power-ups. It's pretty forgiving as far as checkpoints, and even continues, so you can progress. It's got pretty amazing music. It's not fully amazing, so I'm gonna give it just like a 6 out of 10 on the music, but it is classic. Has that classic Genesis tone. But there's some other games coming up here on the rest of the list that are just insane, so that's why it's getting that. But the actual action and the gameplay is phenomenal, and I really think if you like shooters, you will love this game. And it's just one that's worth having. And if you can't have it, freaking play it on an emulator or something, because it is worth it. It's fun to play. It'll be worth your time. Lots of cool boss battles. One thing that I really like about this game is that as you're going through the stages, they just continue on. It's like you just are on this never-ending journey, and it's really cool. It also has somewhat of a metal vibe to it, and your bombs are these huge skulls. You totally want to use those when you get them on the bosses, because unless you're really good at dodging attacks from bosses and stuff, roll up there and use your bombs. It's one of the ways to really get through some of the tougher sections. So anyway, there you go. Let's move on. We've only got 3 left. What could they be? Moving on to 3. Alright, the number 3 game of 1989 on the Genesis is a game I really love, and I'll tell you why. It is extremely brutal. It is extremely difficult to get the controls and weapon systems down, but once you do, you'll be progressing pretty easily. And these levels are fun to explore, they're rewarding, the music is awesome. But I remember playing this, my friend had it, and he was really good, and I would watch him just progress, and he'd get super far, and I could never get past, I think it's like level 4, maybe it was 5, I may have gotten to 5 once, but anyway, it's really brutal, it gets tougher, but it's one of those games that, for some reason when I was a kid, I came back to it. I would play it again, and I'd play it again, and I would always try and get past or I always died, you know. And anyway, it's very, very cool. The sound effects are awesome. It's Mystic Defender. Mystic Defender is actually a sequel to a Master System game, which is pretty crazy. But this game I did play on the channel. You can check that out, and I love this thing. I mean, it's just so well done as far as sound effects. The graphics are stylized. It has some cool backstory going on. But yeah, I could not recommend this enough. If you like challenging platformer style shooters, it's awesome. You actually have different weapons you can switch through, and each one you can charge up and then release, and it does like something, you know. But one of the best is the flame, the fire torch or whatever, shoots out. You can control what direction it goes. Man, I mean, this game is just awesome. So Mystic Defender deserves to be at 3, and if you haven't played it, check it out. I really, really recommend this one. Let's move on. We've only got 2 left. Let's check out number 2. Alright, coming in at number 2 is a game that freaked me out. Just as I said to you guys in the 1986 NES game list, this one freaked me out. And it's really easier than the Super Nintendo version, but here it is, Ghouls and Ghosts. And I'll tell you what, if you want to feel good while playing one of these games, this is probably your best bet, because it's still tough, but it's doable, and you can progress, I'd say, a lot easier than like the Super Nintendo version or even the NES version. But it's challenging, you know. It's not like a free roaming game where everything's going to be cool. It's still tough, and it's sort of fun because you can just kind of make it through the sections a little easier. It's still brutal though. So anyway, I love this game. When I first played it, it really was freaky to me. I loved how much better the graphics were, and I played this before I played the Super Nintendo version too. So anyway, this is a classic, Ghouls and Ghosts. You guys gotta check this out if you haven't played it. Let me know what you think as far as the differences of the Super Nintendo. But there you go. Alright, we're moving up to number 1. What could it be?
Number 1.
Alright, we've covered 9 awesome games for the Genesis from 1989. There can only be one. This was almost a no-brainer for me. I can't tell you how much I played when this game came out. And the soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. I have it on vinyl. It's Yuzo Koshiro. And you guys know it's Revenge of Shinobi. This game is so fun to play and so challenging, I might add. But you really can get the hang of it. There are some tips that you can do to kind of ease your way into it. One thing is that you can go to the option menu and move your cursor over to where it says the shurikens, however many you have. Put it at 0 and just wait 20 seconds. And it'll actually switch to infinity. So that's a really good one. But as you're playing this game, you have to really kind of be on your guard. Lots of platforming. Really varied level design. And there's some other weird things too. There's actually, I think it's 4 different cartridge versions of this. I'm not sure if you can actually identify which one is which by the label, but when you play the game, there are differences. Like Spider-Man was in here before he was removed. I think Marvel had an issue with that. There's actually a Rambo looking character. Anyway, there's all kinds of weird stuff that was thrown in here and then removed. So I think there's a total of 4 different versions of this. And anyway, I love this game. The music, like I said earlier, is so good. It's like, I'd say that the music is probably one of the best things that kind of keeps you playing. But when I think of Sega Genesis soundtracks that are on the top 10, just soundtracks, oh my gosh, this is definitely up there because Yuzo Koshiro is amazing. He also did Streets of Rage. So anyway, there you go, guys. That concludes the top 10 89 Genesis games. Let me know what you thought. We're going to do some more of these, and so, you know, 1989 was great, but 1990 is insane. And yeah, so anyway, stay tuned for those. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and until next time, you know what to do. You keep that shit retro by playing your Sega Genesis later on.